Hi, everyone. Chris Leonard here, consultant with ABRPO. Happy to be invited to share some of my thoughts as a manager on strategies that I've been using and we could be using to support our teams during these strange times of uncertainty and constant change that we're having to navigate in the time of COVID-19. Um, this session is really a space for us to talk about how we can hold up our teams during this sad and this sad time. For me, as a manager, I find that I have a lot of folks who are now working remotely. Not a lot, all of my team are working remotely, those who are working. Um, and the challenge of, how often to check in, how many meetings to have a week, how often to do my one-to-ones versus my group team meetings. It's an ever-changing reality from day to day. So, last week we had said, oh, we'll do check-ins one day a week and we'll do team meetings every other week. And now this week we're doing, a morning huddle just to say good morning and lay eyes on each other and, wish each other a good day. So things are changing constantly. Before I proceed, however, I do want to say that I'm not an expert on this. I am also, as a manager, learning and stumbling and bumbling and making mistakes. And, I just want to say that this is new for us. We've never experienced a time like this before. So yeah, let's proceed. I'm going to be sharing, I have a slide here that I'll be sharing some of my, just some reflections about this time. So it's 1 month ago, within the past month, the world as we knew it, really shifted for us as managers in terms of working with our teams and supporting the very critical work that we do for all the communities we're serving. Many of us, are now sheltering in place at home. Our offices have been closed. I know some of you are still, doing modified work, and maybe some folks are still in the office, but for the most part, a lot of our teams are, off-site and working remotely as we try to help flatten the curve around COVID-19. And this time, it's just a few short weeks, but many of us, and I'm saying us because I am in there, I'm owning my reality as well, are feeling taxed and overwhelmed. And as managers, we're wondering, are we getting this right? Are we doing this right? What is it we should be doing? And I know many of you reached out to Thomas to ask for some, support from ABRPO around how you can support your teams. So I'm hoping that what we share with you today, you will find some of it helpful in your walk beside your workers for however long we're going to be working in this new reality or this new normal. So as we continue to do our best to support our teams during these times, and these times are unprecedented. Like I said, we've never experienced anything like this before, as a sector, as a society, as a world. And so it's important for us to know that this is new and we will make mistakes. So there's no right way or wrong way as we try to find meaning and ways to connect with each other as we haven't had to do before. This time is having an impact on workers, and I must say on managers as well. I'm experiencing the stress responses myself. And so I don't know what your check-ins are like with your team, but it's really important that we make time in our check-ins to not so much focus on the task and work activities, but on the individuals. As Vicki Reynolds always say, in this work, connection is key. And I think her top priority in this time should be maintaining connection through communication with our staff. And yes, we will get to the work of supporting community, but we have to start with ourselves. So really making time to check in and ask the question, and to give people an opportunity to speak to the range of reactions that they're experiencing. I was on a call with my team yesterday, and a couple of members talked about the anxiety and the stress and the isolation that they're experiencing, not being able to be out with connect with others. They're living alone. The staff who are living alone, that is, and that's creating a lot of anxiety and sadness. And so before we get to the work of checking in about tasks and activities, we have to check in about how our staff, how they're doing. And that's our job, to hold them up. A quote that Betty Ann, some of you might know Betty Ann Rutledge, she's with Scarborough Center for Healthy Communities, but she's also an ABRPO consultant, and she shared this with us last week. If you need to get to be right before you move, you will never win. Perfection is the enemy of the good when it comes to emergency management, Speed triumphs perfection. Everyone is afraid of making a mistake. Everyone is afraid of the consequences of error. But the greatest error is not to move and be paralyzed by the fear of failure. So we're all worrying about getting this right. And what we need to do is not let our worry and our fear about making mistakes paralyze us. We have to just trust and just, trust that we know what we know in this time, and that we're doing the best that we can, and that's okay. And if we make a mistake, that's okay too. As we do our part to help flatten the curve. So social distancing and social isolation is going to create for our teams. And I must say that because not all of our teams are working remotely. I know we have a lot of outreach workers who are still on the front lines, and we have to be mindful of how we support them as well, because they're in the trenches and they're going out every day and taking the risk, personal risk to themselves and their families, to ensure that our communities are being served. People who are the most marginalized out on the streets, people who are using substances and need to get safer use supplies. So the folks who are also doing outreach are also, they have to practice social distancing, but they're not socially isolated because they're out and about. So how are we engaging and supporting and holding them up? And what their needs will be a little different from the ones who are working remotely, at home. But we have to be mindful of how we hold space for all of our team members, whether they're still out on the front line or those who are working remotely at home. But the need to shelter in place and be socially distant is creating anxiety. It's creating sense of isolation. It's impacting workers. People are stressed. I see it. We have a lot of Zoom meetings with our teams, and I could see the stress on some people's faces when we check in. The constant meetings is an issue, but we'll get to that. We'll get to that just now. So I think as managers, in terms of helping to reduce the isolation, is connection, communication. To try to be mindful of the emails. And as I'm saying this, the number of emails we send out, as I'm saying this, I'm thinking back to that last email I sent out last night to my team members about checking in about work today. And as I was sending it, I'm like, Chris, this is too much. You sent quite a few emails to folks today. So we really need to stop and ask ourselves the question sometimes, like, is this necessary right now? Because we might be trying to, keep in constant communication, which we need to be doing. But is that constant communication a source of anxiety for the workers? And I think, the message I sent out last night, in retrospect, I probably should have held off and, wait until today and just have a conversation with that person. So to help cope with the stress reaction, we need to maintain constant contact, whether by audio, phone, and I think we should just pick phone sometimes. I'm doing a lot of Microsoft Team meetings and Zoom meetings and emailing, but also sometimes just pick up the phone and just, have a phone conversation with that person, send a text message. So the constant audio, video conferencing, check-ins and updates, we need to have that so that we can hear from our teams and we can be in relation to our teams, but we also need to be mindful of the impact of the constant barrage of, emails, texts, and video conferencing. So yeah, reducing isolation, communication should be our top priority to help us create opportunities for meaningful connections and for reducing social isolation. But we have to be mindful of how we go about that. And the best way we can do that is really, we should be asking people. We know that in the absence of communication, fear and anxiety will rise. People will experience fear and anxiety, but we also want to be mindful of the constant emails and phone calls and meetings that we're setting up could also be, a source of anxiety for some folks. So we need to ask folks. We have to keep talking and listening and providing space for our staff to give voice to the full range of what they're experiencing. So not just about how you're doing. So how you doing? I'm good. My director, when we have our team check-in, he's like, no, I don't want to hear I'm good, right? I want to hear something and like, tell me. Let's do a real check-in. How are you doing really? So, and the full range of what they're experiencing. I want to hear if people are feeling overwhelmed. I don't want people to tell me and pretend like, oh, I'm good and all is well. And, I'm getting my work, I'm getting through my work plan and I'm getting things done. For me right now, and I keep telling my team, that is not my worry. My concern, that's not my concern. My concern is that you are well. And if you're well, I know the work will get done. But my concern is about the worker well-being. And so we have to keep talking and listening to hear the things that are not being said. And, we don't have the face-to-face contact, the in-person contact. So we're going to have to listen and look when we're having screen time for what we see. Like there was one individual yesterday, I saw it, the stress on his face. He and I are going to have a check-in tomorrow. So I'm going to be, following up with him about what I saw yesterday and to check it out. So I don't want to make assumptions, and we shouldn't make assumptions. But what we really need to do is listen and then check it out, not assume. We have to make time to keep sharing timely and accurate information. And you know what? Being open with folks to let them know what they can expect when they will receive updates from us, and to keep the communication going, even if it's just to say, hey guys, you know what? Nothing new today, but just want to give you, just wanted to let you know that, as opposed to having people sitting and waiting and worrying, what's going on, what's happening. I haven't heard from Chris. So our job during this time as managers is really to hold up our team. This is a quote, our teams. This is a quote that I got the last time Vicki Reynolds was in the city, which seems like such a long time ago, but it was just, I think it was in February. Oh no, maybe it was January. But yeah, she was saying that our job as managers is really to hold our teams up. And how we do that will look differently for all of us. My way might not be your way, and that's okay. What matters is that your teams and your staff have the experience of being held well by you. And so communication is the key to maintaining connection, providing reassurance, and that could be daily check-ins, especially the staff, like I was saying, who are still in the front line, who are stepping up to support the work. And one of the things I decided to do with our teams is to have a daily huddle. So in the morning, every morning now, I had started at 9:30. So yesterday they said, no, Chris, we don't want to do a huddle at 9:30. So we're going to do it at 10:30 now. But every morning, we're just going to join each other on Microsoft Teams. It's hi everyone. We lay eyes on each other. Good morning. How you doing? Have a good day. And some people are wanting to jump in with, oh, and I'm working on, and my work is my task in those moments is to say, we're not doing work right now. We're just checking in and creating an opportunity to be with each other and wish each other well before we go into our day. So daily check-ins is good, but again, at a minimum. As I said before, holding our teams up also include allowing space for folks to share their thoughts and feelings about how they're feeling about this time, and not just about work, but just how they're being impacted personally. If they have a trusting relationship with you, they might want to talk about how they're struggling with food insecurity, or how they're struggling to, like, I don't have a proper workstation, so I'm sitting on the couch with my laptop and my back, is hurting me, or whatever they might choose to share with you. So, we want to allow space for them to share, share their reality in this time. Validation for ourselves. So holding our teams up is validating them to let them know, you know what, folks, I'm not going to hold anything against you for any quote unquote mistake that you might make in this time. We're all navigating a new normal. This is new for us. We've never experienced anything like this before. And so it's okay. I'm not going to have any judgments about, anything that you do. As you're trying to, to navigate this new reality. So we have to, holding our teams up will also require us to suspend judgment about, what people are doing or how they're doing, and how we can really, what will help us to do that is by having open conversations and really asking them, and, maintaining that trusting connection where they can tell us what they need to say, and that our reactions based on what we hear will not communicate to them a sense of judgment about, oh my God, I think I shared too much. I told Chris too much. So managing expectations, we have to be open with our staff, clarify the expectations. So for our teams, we all, have a work plan that we put together for working remotely about the tasks and activities we're going to be working on, and discuss what's negotiable and what's not. So I'm not saying it's a free for all, but we also, we need to give clarity and be realistic. Let people know that we know that, there might be times when you're going to need to plug out and take a break from screen time. There might be times when you might have planned to do, like, we're doing online engagement with community members. And one of our team member put out that he's going to be doing games with some of his group members. So like online games. And I noticed he said he's doing them 3 times a week. Now, for me, when I have my conversation with him later, it's about, is that realistic really? I don't think we need to be having, game times 3 days a week. So let's have conversations with them to explore some of the work that they're proposing to do, and support them and coach them around being realistic about what's achievable and what's the impact of that on you, as well as the impact on our community members. Because like I said, we don't want to bombard our team or our staff. We also don't want to be bombarding our community members. And I'm hearing a lot from folks that I'm speaking with in other organization. There's this sense of people feel like they need to show that they're working and they're getting things done and they're online and they're engaging with clients and they're engaging with their staff. And it's like, okay, people, let's breathe. Let's slow down. Let's pace ourselves. Let's recognize that it's not business as usual. These times, things will not be business as usual. And we don't need to be trying to prove to ourselves or anyone else that is the case, because it isn't. So I talked a little bit about meeting times. It's important that we have constant opportunities for meaningful connections and communication. So establishing a consistent structure for the one-to-ones and for team meetings. Establishing regular times for those meetings. Now, from my side, that is easier said than done because there's so many meetings happening. Network meetings, webinars for this, team meetings, that meeting. And so while, the intention was, well, we will do our one-to-ones every week at this time and this day, what I'm finding is sometimes something comes in that is more pressing, that I need to be, to attend to, and that's out the window. So we will have to be flexible. For the meetings, let's try to be creative. So organize activities that, it's not all about an update about what you're doing, but something that is interactive and fun. Like today, my team, we're going to be having a team lunch. And I was actually speaking to someone at another community organization, and she's also having a team lunch with her folks. A remote lunch, of course. We're not coming together for lunch. But yeah, we can, maybe do game. Part of the meeting could be some trivia game that we do interactive on a whiteboard, on Zoom, or maybe something that we do, in the environment, each do from our places where we're taking our meetings. We can also invite people in to do an update or talk about something, I don't know, coping with stress and anxiety, how to manage, the constant interruptions, but try to make the meetings more interactive and creative. And then the other thing I want to say is the times of the meetings. So for me, I'm trying to limit meetings to 1 hour. I think anything longer than an hour, it's too much, because like I say, and I'm sure you all are finding that there's so many meetings happening. And so we need to be mindful of, the impact of that on people's eyes, their heads, their psyches. So try to, keep the meetings short and tight. Checking in with our teams, I've talked about that. So we need to ask folks what they need. We need to keep checking in. So just what I might have checked in 2 weeks ago and heard that folks are good and this is, they're set. But 2 weeks from now, they might be, things might have changed. So we need to be constantly checking in and asking folks about what they need. The piece around the situation about working on the couch is a real situation. And sometimes we might actually have to, as an organization, take some steps to support our teams with some of the tools and resources that they need so that they can work comfortably at home. So we need to check in about, do you have a proper workstation? Do you need us to get you a portable printer if you're doing a lot of work where you need to have access to, for some people, they need to work with hard copies and not reading constantly on a screen, to be skillful. But we should check in around how people are managing. Some folks are struggling financially, and that's an offline one-on-one check-in and skillfully, but folks will not come and tell us. So if we have a sense that or people might be in a rough shape financially, let's ask the question. People will appreciate that. I've done that. We've done that, and people have appreciated that. And then we do what we can to support them. So yeah, having discussion about internet access, workspace, resources. How are you doing for food? Are you able to get out? Some of our people might have mobility issues or other issues. Maybe some folks are dealing with anxiety, and so getting out to get groceries might be a hard thing for them. Can we have a conversation and problem solve? Maybe I can drop some food off for you and leave it out, outside. So really supporting our teams and holding our teams up is more than, helping them to get through the work plans and the activities and tasks of their deliverables. A piece around this supporting people working remotely that's going to come up. I don't know if anybody's had this as an issue. We've had equity and access. This will be magnified during these times. Not everyone have the privilege to go off and take their laptops at home, and they have unlimited, great bandwidth on their systems, and they can get things done from home. For some folks, access to the proper equipment will be an issue. Folks who are living in rural communities, You're not going to have the same access and speed and ability to access some of the calls. And so we have to be mindful of how we support. For those of you who are managing folks remotely, I'm sure this is something you've already faced and are addressing. So, having a conversation with your staff and your leadership team about how we're responding to issues around equity and access is key. And then one of the ways we can support our staff around working remotely is encouraging them to have a dedicated workspace where possible, so that the work happens in this space. And so when I'm done working, that's it. I'm done. I'm not, so that work and home is not, blurred. The lines are not blurred, so that you can have some boundaries about when I'm on and when I'm off. Same with work time, maybe encourage them to have a scheduled time for work life and a scheduled time for when they're going to be off to be, doing their own thing at home, and setting boundaries around how that's going to happen, so that there's, that's helping to manage the uh, manage the stress that will come from if everything is just all blurred, and I don't know when I'm on and when I'm off, and I'm working over here today and I'm working in this space tomorrow. Some people might want to take their laptops and go sit on their deck. That's okay. But within their living environment, it's helpful, I think, to have a spot where they're working, so that when work is done, they can actually just shut down, tuck those things away, so that they can actually focus on themselves and their families, or their lives outside of work. This one, encourage staff to get dressed. I read a study. There was an online article from the Vancouver Sun that, workers, people who are working remotely, if you get up and you get dressed and you shower and, you really kind of get yourself ready, because it's psyching yourself up mentally and physically, and getting yourselves ready for work. Apparently we get more done. That's been my routine anyhow, getting up, walking my dog, showering, making a cup of tea, although sometimes I jump into work and I don't even attend to, my nutrition. So that's something that we also need to be telling folks about as part of their routine, is breaks. I don't know, for folks who smoke, take a break. For folks who, go for a stretch, make yourself something to eat, nourish yourself, take care of yourself. And so that, you come back to the work with more gas in your tank to keep going. Managing the interruptions for folks who are working with children at home, or pets. In my case, I don't have young children at home, but I have a dog, and a lot of people, my neighbor gets a lot of deliveries. And so every time the letter carrier shows up, or Purelator or any kind of delivery vehicle shows up, she goes ballistic. So it's constant interruptions. I'm holding my fingers crossed that nobody's going to be getting a delivery close to me in the next little while. And then, you know what, if she starts barking, that's okay, because like I say, it's not business as usual. We're working from home, and part of working from home, or normal lives, will kind of come in and out. So the kid comes in for help with homework, or I need your time and attention, or I need a hug, or whatever. That's part of the reality, and I'm not going to be shooing my child if I'm on a Zoom call if I had a young child. Similarly, I don't be shooing my dog, but I quickly try to mute, and sometimes I can't, and so she's barking in the background. It's okay. Supporting worker well-being. Encouraging our staff to pace themselves, very, very important. Like I said before, no need to try to prove to me that, you just got this done and you need to fire off an email so that I can see that you're working, and pace yourself, relax, take it easy. I trust that you're working from a place of, integrity, and that you're committed to what you're doing. And I trust that you're getting things done. In our one-to-ones, we will talk about your activity and your work plan. But in the day-to-day, pace yourself, and you don't need to prove to me that, you're working. It also encouraging them to take frequent breaks from screen time. I find it screen time very, very hard, very, very hard. Um, but I need to take a dose of my own medicine because I'm not taking as frequent breaks as I need to. Um, so we need to give ourselves permission to do that, and that's one that I'm a work in progress on that one. And then booking off time, like, when we were showing up at work or at our physical workspace, there were days when people needed to like plug out, and folks will also need to plug out to recharge. So encourage folks, take a day off, take 2 days off if you need to, like give yourself a break from the work. Um, and most importantly, encourage folks to access support. And I put here employee assistance. And I know for many folks in our sector, employee assistance is, for many of us, we've heard feedback from our people that they didn't find it helpful, but for some people they do, and encourage people. It's an option, and there might be other supports for counseling and for even support around not even just emotional support, but around financial, you know, information and assistance. And that's where employee assistance could come in handy because they have, financial counselors who can help them. But worker wellness matters, and I think it's important that we as managers also model the way. And I must say that I'm a manager who needs to do a lot more in terms of how I model, um, taking care of myself for my team. Because if I'm sending emails at 8 p.m. or later, I'm actually not modeling the way for my team. Um, it's a contradiction for me to say, don't be doing this, but then I'm sending stuff at them where they might be. So I would say, oh, you don't have to respond to this till tomorrow. It's still an interruption in their personal time. And so that's something that I am working on. Yeah, breaks, taking breaks. We need to. Taking care of ourselves. So as managers, I don't know how you guys are doing, and are you reaching out to your colleagues, folks in your leadership team or other colleagues in the sector to say, how are you doing really? And actually, I woke up this morning thinking about one of my colleagues in another organization that I need to call. So, I need to reach out to say, how are you doing? I was on a call with you last week and I heard something, and I want to check in. So who's holding us up? Who's holding you up? Ask the question. And maybe you have your go-to people, and that's great. But if you don't, you know, seek someone out. We need to take time to stop and check in with ourselves as well, to check in with our leadership team, and not about, what's the work of the week, but just how are we doing? And it's just a real check-in where we can say, I am feeling overwhelmed. I'm feeling stressed. I'm feeling like I'm not keeping up on the things that I thought I would be on top of, and to just own our reality. And because if to not do that is then we're pushing ourselves aside, and we're not doing ourselves any favor if we're trying to cover up, all what we're carrying in our heads and in ourselves about how we're doing really. So it's very important that we need to, stop and have time for ourselves as managers. And I would say checking in with our leadership team, but I really feel that there's a need for us to check in with each other. And there are a lot of spaces. I know ABRPO, we did the session last week. We're doing this. We're going to be posting this webinar soon. The Ontario Harm Reduction Network, they're having calls, and other places are pulling people together. But I think just a real person-to-person check-in, not a 20-person Zoom meeting, but like one or two people or two or three of us just kind of huddling on the phone or on a Zoom call or whatever, and just really having a real conversation about our well-being as managers. I think that is needed, and I would love to to have that for myself. So I'm going to reach out to my colleague and do that one-to-one with her. Um, so in closing, I just want to say, really, supporting our teams and holding our teams up starts with us. We have to start with ourselves first. We have to, model the way. We have to find ways to maintain connection with ourselves and each other as leadership teams, and in so doing, we will also find ways to maintain connection, to keep talking amongst ourselves, and to keep talking with our staff. Keep looking for creative ways to hold ourselves up, as well as creative ways for holding up our staff, and continue supporting and reaffirming a sense of connectedness, however that happens. Zoom, with a phone call, a text message, an email. Yeah, that could work too. Let people know you're thinking about them. Um, and keep responding with hope and knowing that this too shall pass. We have to, be gentle with ourselves and recognize that it's not business as usual, that we are going to make mistakes. I have, and I know I will continue to make mistakes. But if I'm creating opportunity for connection and creating a safe space for my staff to be heard and to express how they're really doing, um, you know, that's good, and that's the best that I can do, and being honest with the best that we can do each day, or I will even say not even each day, moment to moment. Um, it's it will help to, with helping our staff to hold steady and maintaining balance as they try to navigate, as we all try to navigate this time of uncertainty and change and loss, and and a whole new normal that we never anticipated. I hope this has been helpful and that you will find something in this call um, helpful for yourself and for your team, and wishing us all well as we move to this time of change and transition called COVID-19. Thank you and have a good day.